welcome to Pretty Nerdy. My name is Alana. Today I'm doing my July wrap-up. In the month of July I managed to read 6 books. I participated in the reading rush from the 22nd to the 28th of July. So this is a stack of some of the books I read this month, so let's get into more detail. The first book I read this month is Rogue by AJ Betts. I actually started this in June and finished it in July. It is the sequel to Hive, which I gave 4 stars. I gave Rogue 4.5 stars. Lucky enough to be part of the blog tour for Rogue hosted by Aus YA Bloggers, and they, with the publisher Macmillan, they sent me both books to read and review. I reviewed both of them on my Instagram, which I will link below. These are great books by an amazing Aus YA author. They are a dystopian. They really reflect well on society today and quite thought-provoking, especially when it comes to bees. That's something I was already thinking of, but after reading these books, I want to become more active in the Save the Bee movement. So I will leave some links below for both the books and a link to Save the Bees. The next book I read is Fix Her Up by Tessa Bailey. I gave this 3 stars. I actually don't have a physical copy of this book as I listened to it on audio via script. I did really like this book, but it just didn't really have any oomph to it for me. It is a nice, light-heart contemporary romance, and I did really enjoy it, but I probably won't bother buying a physical copy and just leave it with the audio book. Now for the books I read for the reading rush. The first book I read for the reading rush is Shadow and Bone by Leigh Bardugo. I gave this 4 out of 5 stars. This is the first book in the Shadow and Bone trilogy, previously known as the Gracia trilogy, by Leigh Bardugo. This fit into 4 of the challenges. Let me just get my journal out so I get these correct. It fit into the challenge of read a book with purple on the cover, because it's pretty purple. Read a book in the same spot the entire time. I read this over 2 days, but I stayed in my bed the whole time. Book you meant to read last year. This book had been on my TBR for quite a long time. As if you are aware of this series, you probably recognize that this cover is quite old. It is now no longer printed, so that's how long it's been on my TBR. So I really get around to it. I'm so glad I finally get around to it now. Read an author's first book. This is Leigh's debut novel, which I could not tell necessarily, but there were a few sort of giveaways that, yeah, this is definitely a first novel, because I've read her 6 of Crows trilogy and I can tell that she vastly improved between this book and that book. But I'm really excited to continue reading the series. I have ordered the matching editions, which was difficult as this is out of print. But yeah, so hopefully I'll be able to read them in August. The next book was a reread, and that was Percy Jackson and the Lightning Thief. This fit for the other challenges for the reading rush, which always refer back to the journal. Which fit for read a book with a non-human main character. I think it fits for just Percy, as he is a demigod, so he's half human, half god, but also his best friend is Astaire, who is half goat, half human, and if that didn't work, there are gods who are obviously not human, and they are pretty main characters in the story, so I thought that counted. Read a book with 5 or more words in the title. It might look like it's only 3 words, but Percy Jackson and the Olympians is also part of the title, therefore it works. And read and watch the book to movie adaptation. Now, as if you might be aware that the movie is not loved by many people, and one of those people is Rick Riordan. He does not really like the adaptation. and I don't really like the adaptation. I kind of hate watched it. It was more, I just couldn't think of another book that I wanted to read that was also a movie adaptation, so I just sort of pushed through watching it and sort of scrolled through Instagram as I watched it. But yeah, that is definitely a case of the book is better than the movie. Yeah, so I gave this a 5 out of 5 stars, as I have every time I've read this. I wanted to reread this mainly to annotate the series, and I have started the rest of the series, which I will talk about now. So then, after the reading rush, I read Sea of Monsters, which is the second book in the Percy Jackson series, which I annotated as well. I will leave a link to Books with Chloe, her annotation video, because that's roughly how I do my annotating. I've sort of got the idea from her and sort of follow the general way she does it, but I might do a video in the future about how I annotate, but I'll leave hers down below just to give you an idea. So yeah, I gave Sea of Monsters 5 out of 5 stars, like the rest of the Percy Jackson series. I really enjoyed this, but I didn't get anything new out of it. It was just sort of highlighting my favourite parts I've already read, like already remembered. And the last book I read in July is The Titians Curse, which is the third book in the Percy Jackson series. I'd say I got the most out of rereading this one, as it's the one I probably so far remember the least about. So I got a lot more things I could pick up on, the smaller details and stuff. I gave this a 5 out of 5 stars, like the rest of the books. If you're at all interested, if you haven't read Percy Jackson series, I highly recommend it, and I will leave a link down below to Goodreads so you can read the synopsis of the first book. But I highly recommend this series and its continuing series of Heroes of Olympus. They're great books. And the last sort of thing I read is Kindred, which is 12 queer stories, short queer stories. I only read 3 out of the 12 this month, so I'm not counting it as finished, but I just thought I'd talk about the ones I had read. This is a Aus YA authors queer story on Voices as well. The first story I read was Rats by Marlene Jane Ward, which I gave 1 star. The second one was In Case of Emergency Break Glass by Erin Go, which I gave 2 stars. And the third one is Bitter Drought by Michael Earp, which I gave 3.5 stars. So as I'm going through it, I'm sort of liking them more, but I think it's very unlikely that I'll ever give a short story a 5 star, just because of my reading style. I particularly don't like short stories as much. I feel like they don't connect with me because I take a while to get into books. And so with short stories, once I'm into it, it ends. So it's not really the best book for me, but I am really liking it and seeing the diverse representation, which I think is really important for people to see themselves represented in books. So I do still highly recommend these stories, even though I personally so far haven't really liked them, but they're still stories to read, and so I will keep you updated with what I read next month. So yeah, that is the end of my July wrap up. Let me know in the comments if you've read any of these books and what you thought of them. Yeah, so I'll see you soon for another video. Bye!